But taking this fake catastrophes in relation to Brazil, what Brazil is suffering a lot of pressure in relation to the Amazon. And
Yes.
My father is an airline pilot, and I had a privilege to fly with him in the cabin when we could. And I flew from Brazil to the US about 10 or 15 times at least. And I was able to fly over the Amazon and you can fly for 4 hours over the Amazon, and you cannot see anyone there, for 4 hours. It's huge. People don't understand the size of it. It's huge.
No.
And it's still there. Almost 90% is still there. And more than 50% are parks or something around that. And any farm there needs to be 80% preserved. And we're not growing food there, as they say. The food is being grown mostly on the Cerrado, on the south of Brazil. So how can we tell people that this is another fake catastrophe that they claim Brazil is happening to Brazil?
It's very difficult because the Amazon is a classic case of somewhere that is so remote that the average person never sees it. They call it a human desert. I've been to the Amazon myself. I've been to Belém at the mouth of the Amazon, where it enters near where it enters the sea. I've been to Jari, where the plantation forests are. I've been to Manaus, and I have flown over the entire Amazon. So just like you, I have seen it. And it is a huge place. I mean, it is so huge, almost no one could understand how big it is. It is bigger than most countries. Most people think Brazil is a country like Germany or something, or France. No, Brazil is nearly as large as the United States. If you take the map of Brazil and put it over the United States, it nearly covers the 48 states. So it's such a huge area. And the Amazon is a very large part of Brazil, but not many people ever go there. Manaus is not a big tourist town.
No.
Everybody goes to Sao Paulo and Rio.
Even the Brazilians don't go to the Amazon. I've been 5 times to Amazon, but most of the people here have never been there.
Precisely.
They don't know what's the Amazon.
There's not what they want there. They want city people things. I've been to Porto Alegre. I've been to Florianopolis. I've been to the Pantanal. I've been to Vitoria. I've been to Rio and Sao Paulo, of course. I've been to those Amazon cities I mentioned. So I've seen more of Brazil than most Brazilians have seen.
For sure. And
Brazil is a wonderful country. It has so much wilderness. Oh, and Foz do Iguazu, maybe I'm pronouncing it the Spanish way, but that waterfall you have in the south of Brazil is definitely the most beautiful in the world. I've seen Victoria Falls and many other waterfalls, Niagara Falls. In Niagara Falls, you see this beautiful falls, and then you look up and there are 6 casinos, right? It's in the middle of a gambling place. I don't know why they did that, but they did. And Victoria Falls is in a ravine, so it's actually very difficult to see. You have to fly up. I went up in an ultralight, where someone else was flying it, but I was the passenger, just 2 of us. And I had my camera, so I could get better photographs doing that, but not everybody will do that. It's not easy to take a good picture of Victoria Falls because it's so tight. It's in a ravine. Whereas Iguazu, oh my goodness, what a place.
What a place.
We spent 3 days there. And I always tell friends who I advise to go there, stay in the Sheraton Hotel, which is inside the park. This is in Argentina side. When the junta was in power in Argentina, one of the generals got to build a hotel inside the park because nobody was allowed to build a hotel inside the park before, Because at night, at 6 o'clock, all the tourists have to leave from the park. And in the morning, they can't come back till 9. But if you stay in the Sheraton, you're inside the park 24 hours. So you can get up at 6 in the morning and you have the whole place to yourself to photograph the birds and all. But here's the detail. Stay in the Sheraton on the 3rd floor, close to the elevator. And you get a view of the big waterfall in the distance. So anybody who's listening, if you go to Iguazu Falls, you have to, for this, you have to go on the Argentinian side, which is actually the best side. I've been on the Brazilian side. There you can walk out. It's kind of cool because they have all these walkways that have been built to walk out into the falls, but they don't have anywhere near the amount of the waterfall to discover as you do in Argentina.
Yeah.
And for some reason, even though Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay all meet at this place, the borders, they make you pay a lot of money to go from one country to another, even though it's easy to do, it's very close, but you have to pay like $200 each. So nobody does that. I love that part of Brazil, though.
Oh, that's great. I took my daughters there some years ago. It's wonderful. It's people must go there also. And let's talk about what's going on right now, because those fake catastrophes are getting into a summit, I would say. We've seen Boris hosting the G7 there in Cornwall. He posted a picture of him getting out of an airplane and saying that the world must come back building better and greener. There was an article in the Telegraph by Cheryl Jacobs, and she wrote something very interesting. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, still does not seem to fully appreciate that he's increasingly fighting not just a pandemic, but an ideology. The interest of the two most powerful movements of the moment, environmentalism and global health, are converging. It appears that the promotion of this political agenda, some say the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, Green New Deal, Build Back Better, they all are predicated on the claim that COVID and its disruption of the global economy provides a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to not just to regulate climate, but to frame a more fair, more diverse, more inclusive, or as they say more woke world. What do you think about that, Dr. Moore?
What they say is a more socialist world or a more communist world. That's how I see it. They plan to force people to be equal, and people are not equal in every aspect. They are against meritocracy, which means they are against recognizing that some people do some things better than others, or are more careful to learn, more attentive, more teamwork oriented, whatever. They refuse to recognize individuality. Of course, we are all equal in terms of the law. This is an important point. But nowadays, that's not true. In the United States, for example, the people who are rioting and burning and looting all get out of jail the next morning to go and do it again. Whereas some people who make a minor infraction of trespassing into the US Congress are in isolation for 3 months in solitary confinement in the dark, punished, severely punished for this, and not let out the next morning. So I think
there is something dark going on. It seems there is something dark going on.
There's something evil going on.
Yes.
What the evil which is going on is represented by Greta Thunberg, using children to scare children, using children to misinform children, using children to propagandize to children. And it's the adults who are using the children. Mao did this, Stalin did this, and Hitler did this, using small girls with pigtails. The pictures are there in history for anyone to see. I think my earbuds keep peeping. I think maybe they're running out of electricity. I'm not sure.
Oh.
I don't know why they are making these noises, but I haven't had them for.
I cannot hear it, but.
Well, good. If I can't hear you anymore, it's because of that, I think.
All right.
But let's continue. I know you can edit this, right?
Yeah. But going back to that, that's why they call you a climate denier, because on the same time, they behave as those past ideologies, or not past ideology, because they are right here, right now, but they call it a denier. They call us a denier because they want to say that that we are like a Holocaust denier. And
yes,
they promote these fake catastrophes, and they will promote a real catastrophe, probably in the near future, if they keep doing
well,
these
one
policies.
One thing I say is I don't like to make predictions about the future, because I don't like to be wrong 90% of the time. Because anybody who thinks they can make a lot of predictions about the future is going to be wrong most of the time, because the future is not that easy to predict. But I do know one prediction: net zero will not happen. We will not stop using fossil fuels in 30 years. That is not going to happen, because it's impossible to do that, especially when the people who are proposing it are against nuclear energy too. And they're also against hydroelectric energy. They are against using water to make electricity, because they don't like to see the rivers made into a lake. What's wrong with lakes? Are there too many lakes in the world? No. There are way more valleys than there are lakes, like probably 1,000 times more valleys to fill with water and make a lake. So it's crazy to think that they think, these people, these green people, so-called green people, think we can actually provide all the world's energy with wind and solar. That's basically what they're saying, and batteries. So we have, I don't know how many batteries they think we can make, but we cannot make enough batteries to last for a week or two when there is no sun and no wind. So what they're saying is we have to adjust to a world in which the electricity disappears quite often, and there is no electricity. So then what do you do?
That's the catastrophe I'm afraid of, because they are already killing people, making people poorer, or
Yes.
they are not allowing people to get out of poverty because of those policies, especially in Africa or around here, even in Brazil, if they want to promote that, you know. And that's sad. That's as we spoke in the last time. It seems like they don't like the humans. They don't like people. So it seems like they want to promote a planet with less people, and that's the one way of doing this, you know, somehow. But
yes, that is how they think. Exactly. They think humans are the enemies of nature. Humans are the enemies of the earth. So they have a kind of religion which is like the fire and brimstone, we will all go to hell kind of religion, because we are evil. Humans are evil. And this is a lie, of course. Most humans are good. There are some evil humans. There are probably some evil tigers too, and whatever else. But the idea that there is such a thing as evil which is only in people is ridiculous. And yet it is now the people who are pushing these ideas who are actually the evil ones. because they want basically mass murder, because they are doing something on purpose. It's not by mistake that they are going to make it impossible for all the people to stay alive, because the energy is keeping us alive every day, and it's mostly from fossil fuels. So they are purposefully creating a situation in which, if they were able to succeed, would result in mass death of the poorest people. So these are supposedly noble people who don't care about the poor. That's not noble. That is evil. So these people are actually evil. So we live in a time of very starkly exhibition of good and evil. Good people care about other people, especially the lowest people in society. There's always going to be a difference in the intelligence of people, in the abilities of people, in the training of people, in the professionalism of people. The individuality is real, and not everyone is a genius. Some people are poor. We should care about them. But the people who are wanting to end the use of fossil fuels, unless they are completely deluded, do not care about what that will result, what will happen if we were to go on this path. Even when the gas stations, fueling stations run out of fuel for cars, there's a panic.
Yes.
You know, that's all it takes. And the panic that would ensue, that would occur if the farmers did not have fuel for their tractors and their harvesting equipment and all of the other machinery they need to grow our food, that's the first thing. First, the food would become scarce. Mm-hmm. This causes starvation, especially in the middle of the city, where the balcony is not large enough to grow your food on your apartment building up in the air. And then there is, after that comes the trees. If there's not enough energy, people will use wood to heat and cook. People will figure out how to use wood, and then they will cut all the trees in the world down, because there are not enough trees to provide the energy for 6, 7, 8 billion people. But that would be the only thing left if you got rid of fossil fuels.
That's what happens in Africa. They cut trees because they don't have electricity.
Yes, it's true. It's interesting that India and China, which are the two most populous countries, are also contributing the most to the greening of the earth. The greening of the earth is caused by our CO2 emissions, providing more fertilizer for the plants. So our food crops and our forests are growing faster now than before we started to put the CO2 into the atmosphere, which is the main food for plants. Of course, everybody knows that. A lot of people like to ignore it, but it's true. And India and China, between the two of them, are putting as much CO2 in the atmosphere as virtually all the rest of the world put together.
Yes.
And so they are contributing 50% of the greening of the earth. And at the same time, they are growing more food and new forests than anywhere else in the world. So they are also the main greeners of the earth, not just putting the fertilizer there, but also growing the trees and food crops in concentrated areas. So they are making, the most populous places on earth are making the biggest contribution to the greening of the earth. And so this is not a very good argument for reducing the population. Actually, the increase in population and the burning of fossil fuels is bringing a balance back to the global carbon cycle. I have a paper on this. It is double-blind peer-reviewed. It is being read by many people, but not that many, because everybody just says, oh, that guy's a climate denier. But the fact of the matter is, I think I understand the situation better than all those fakers. And that is that we, the human species, through no design of our own, we started using fossil fuels because of energy, not to put CO2 in the air.
Yes.
But the byproduct of burning fossil fuels is putting the carbon dioxide back in the air where it came from in the first place to make those fossil fuels. Because those fossil fuels were made in a forest. Well, coal was. The oil and gas come from marine sediments, but it's of life. So all the fossil fuels were made with life. They are all made with sunshine, photosynthesis. Solar energy made all the fossil fuels. The fossil fuels are the largest storage battery of solar energy in the world, by far.
If they want batteries, those are batteries. Coal
those are the batteries of the earth.
Fossil fuels are batteries. That's it.
And we don't have to dig all these rare earths out of the ground to make them. They're all waiting for us to use them. I am in favor of reducing the use of fossil fuels. Why? Because they're precious and they're limited, and we should save them to run airplanes, which nothing else can do. Not just airplanes, but that's the best example of what else can we use to make thousands of airplanes fly every day? Nothing else we know of. So we should be using nuclear energy to make most of the electricity, because we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the Greens are against it for no good reason. It's the safest technology of all the electricity technologies, even safer than wind and solar in terms of the number of people that are harmed per unit of electricity produced. Because nuclear on a small footprint produces a vast amount of electricity, whereas to make that amount of electricity with wind and solar takes vast areas of land taken out of agriculture and made to look ugly. So nuclear is obviously the solution for the future. We already know how to do it. There's 440 or something nuclear plants running every day in the world, providing between 10 and 15% of the energy. We could easily make that 50%. No problem. And that would mean much less fossil fuels are being used, and therefore those fossil fuels are still there for the future. I'm not wanting to reduce fossil fuels because CO2 is bad. I'm wanting to reduce fossil fuels because fossil fuels are good, because they should be conserved. And I don't want to do it with something that's going to be stupid, though, like wind and solar. It's ridiculous to think you could replace fossil fuels with wind and solar. You can't.
But after that Chernobyl series, I think on HBO or something like that, people got more scared about nuclear energy, and it is hard to talk to people about that. You know, they see something and they get scared about, and it's hard to get them out of that scary place that they go to when we talk about nuclear energy.
Chernobyl was the only nuclear reactor to cause the death of people. No other nuclear reactor has done that. Not 3 Mile Island and not Fukushima. Nobody died from radiation in the Fukushima accident. It was not a disaster from a human point of view. It was only a disaster from an economic point of view. Cost a lot of money, but there is a lot of money, and they're fixing it up. But the truth is, nuclear energy is the safest in terms of the number of people who died from nuclear energy compared to all the other energy sources we have.
Even in Chernobyl, it was not that many people.
It was in the 60s.
Yes.
60 something. Yes.
Yes. And
well, some say 56.
People think it was like 50,000 people. It's not that.
Greenpeace said it was 300,000.
300,000.
Someone else said 900,000. But these people have no names or graves. You see, they are just invisible people that they make up, just like the species going extinct by 1 million. They make up these numbers. In fact, the World Health Organization says 56. So, okay, maybe it was 65, whatever. It was a very small number of people compared to other accidents that have happened in the world. And hydroelectric actually has caused more death than any other, partly because one hydroelectric dam breaking in China in, I think, 1975 killed 250,000 people.
Wow.
One hydro dam. Yeah, they build them better now when after that happened.
Oh, I hope so.
But let's talk about Chernobyl. That reactor design was a shortcut that the Soviet Union took. This is before the Iron Curtain came down, when the Soviets were totally not involved with talking to Western scientists. So they weren't influenced by the standards that were developed in the West for nuclear power. They built all these reactors based on their plutonium production reactor design for making nuclear weapons. So they took their nuclear weapons design reactor and put them as power reactors all around the former Soviet Union in many different countries. Like there were at least 25 or 30 of these. 10 of them are still operating, but they have all been retrofitted to make sure that accident can never happen again.
Okay.
They had a flaw. It was called a positive void coefficient. All of the reactors in the West have a negative void coefficient. This means it's impossible for a nuclear reaction like a bomb to happen in the reactors. But the Chernobyl design reactor was capable of exploding like a bomb. And that's what Chernobyl was. Fukushima and 3 Mile Island were loss of cooling and meltdown of the core from heat. They were not nuclear explosions. Chernobyl was actually a slow nuclear bomb. And that's why it spewed radiation all across the countryside for hundreds of miles, even up to Scandinavia. Whereas Fukushima and especially 3 Mile Island, only a very tiny bit of radiation escaped from 3 Mile Island with no consequence. A lot of radiation did go into the sea from Fukushima. But the sea is an amazing place in terms of being able to absorb things. The sea can heal itself very quickly, is the fact. And you can pour all kinds of stuff in the ocean and it hardly makes any difference because the salinity of the sea makes it into a chemical soup, which is resistant to so much. And so the impact of Fukushima, even on the ocean, was very small. In the long term, it's nothing. So the truth is, nuclear is the safest technology, and the Greens reject it with scare stories because radiation is invisible. That's another one of the fake invisible catastrophes, is radiation. One of my favorites, though, is genetically modified foods. They say that genetically modified foods have something bad in them, which is bad for you, right? That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
What is it that is in them that is bad for you? I mean, people have been eating genetically modified foods for over 20 years now, and not one person has even had a stomach ache, never mind died from genetically modified foods. But what is the thing that they say is bad? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't have a name, whatever it is, nor a chemical formula. Everything has a name, and everything has a chemical formula. There is nothing in this world that we know of that does not have a name. As soon as you find something new, you give it a name, right?
Yeah.
There is no name for the bad thing in GMOs. Why? Because it doesn't exist. So it's not only invisible, it actually does not exist. And yet they still get away with pretending it exists. And some people believe them, even though it hasn't got a name. So why is that? Is it because people are stupid? Because they don't need to know the name of what's bad? I mean, usually people would want to know what it was. What is that thing which is bad? But there isn't anything, so they can't know what it is because it doesn't exist. It's like the Pacific garbage patch.
It's invisible.
Simply,
they want to promote invisible catastrophes, as you said in your book.
yes. And the reason they get away with it is because it's invisible. So therefore people can't see it. So you can make up any story about something that is invisible, even if it's real, like CO2 and radiation. Those things are real. We know how to measure them, but not with your eyes or your taste. You can't sense them with your own senses. You have to have a Geiger counter to detect radiation. You have to have a CO2 meter, which is expensive to buy. How many people have a CO2 meter in their house? You know?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody, no. Some scientists have one.
Dr. Moore, you said you don't like to make predictions to the future, but can we dream? Is it possible that we will be able to have a real plus 35 or 40 or something like that? With people like you, Susan Crockford, Hopper Darwal, Benny Pfizer, and many others that are fighting this good fight to make a real assessment of what happened since Rio 92. Do you think it will be possible one day?
Of course. It must be. If it isn't, there will be a calamity of proportions, and it will be self-inflicted. I mean, I guess you could say wars are self-inflicted, but this wouldn't necessarily be a war, except a war against ourselves, a self-created war against our own selves. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. But in history, there is the saying that the pendulum only goes so far, and then it comes back again to the middle, and then starts going the other way. So I don't know if this metaphor is valid. Maybe we will all just crazy. Well, I'm not going crazy, but maybe society will just go crazy. I've often thought that social media, in the broadest sense of so much information through so many different channels going into everybody's head every day, may not be possible for the human psyche or the political consciousness or whatever you want to call it, may not be possible to cope with this. That maybe everybody will just go crazy because they cannot actually cope with it in a collective.
Yeah.
Because we are a society, a social animal, which is used to just talking to each other. And then came radio, and then came television, and now comes Twitter and all this stuff. One of the things I really don't like about this Twitter age is there are at least 16 different ways to send a message to someone. And I can't keep up with that many different, you know, there's just in Twitter, there is to tweet, and there is to reply, and there is to like, and all these things. And then even in Twitter, there's direct message. If you have each followed each other, you can do that. But then there's another category for people who have not followed, where you can, I just found it the other day, where you can click, and I found out all these messages coming to me from people I'm not following.
Oh.
And that's just in Twitter. And then you've got 4 or 5 different WhatsApp and message and messenger, and, you know, there's too many ways to communicate, and it's all a big noise. And I'm afraid it's going to make a big noise in everybody's head, and like metaphorically, our heads will all explode, and we will be completely useless and incapable of coping with the social situation that occurs, the political situation that occurs as a result.
I heard something similar, that when the printing press came and people started having access to books and to more things to read, that's when Luther King came, Martin Luther, right? Martin Luther came, and so wars started. People started debating and fighting. It's something similar to what is going on with social media right now, it seems. It has a similarity, it seems, with that. People are having more access to information, fake information, good information, and they are trying to understand where they are, and they are being also shepherded to some information that some people want them to see. I think that's one of the biggest problem.
Well, the fact that it's now considered acceptable to just tell lies through all these different medias, I think the collective head might explode. That at a political and social level, we could have a complete breakdown globally, among countries, among societies, just among people in different lives. And yet, because we're getting this bombardment constantly, and it's not something normal. It's not how we evolved from millions of years. And so I guess it's possible that there could be this like total social breakdown. And what will come out from that? Who knows?
Who knows?
I hope it doesn't cause mass annihilation of people and societies. Hopefully we will come through this stronger than we went in. I don't know, though. I don't predict the future. But what I certainly hope is that people, I think the COVID pandemic has also given another example of how we are being lied to so much, with the cover up of the Wuhan lab, and now the video showing the bats in there. When they said no, there were no bats in there. They said no, they said no to the whole thing. But it appears as though they were using mice that were made to like humans inside, so they could do these experiments on the mice. They show the mice. I've seen the mice on the video too. So all these mice upside down with their stomachs open or whatever, so they can put this virus on them and see if it infects them easy. So they did that to make it easier to infect humans. And then it either escaped by accident or on purpose. But the real issue is, why were they doing it in the first place?
Yeah.
Why were they trying to make a virus that would infect people more? What possible good could that be?
And why was American money going to that lab?
And why? Again, I don't know if you know Matt Ridley's name.
Yes.
Matt Ridley is a famous author. He wrote The Evolution of Everything and many other books.
I just read it.
Did you? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's a friend of mine.
Oh, I would like to talk to him.
He's a member of the House of Lords.
Yes.
In England. And I've been in the House of Lords to have tea with him, only I had a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And but they can invite you in and when I was doing the Golden Rice campaign, we became friends, and I've just emailed him now, and he's bought my book, and he will make a review of it, I hope. But Matt Ridley is writing a book about the virus.
He is. He's really good. He'll go deep on that, I'm sure.
He's the best.
He's the best.
I think the evolution of everything is really, really very good, isn't it? That everything is coming from below, not by puppets up here.
Yes.
That everything is emerging from below.
Yes.
From the earth.
And he's been very consistent about this virus, and he's been searching and writing about it. And he always said there was something different about this virus, that it looks manipulated and everything. And he's really good. He's very, very good. He knows what he's talking about.
I can't wait to see what he says, because what I really want to know is what the motivation for doing this was. Not so much the details about how it got out or whatever. That's important too. But the really important thing is why. Why was it being done? And who was all involved? And what was their motivation? This is the really important thing. But I'm hoping this will teach people that the climate change is something they should question too. Because they're not the same issue. but they have some many things in common, especially the denial part. You are a denier, you are a liar, you are whatever you are. And it's the people who are telling the lies who are accusing us of being liars and deniers.
People were shut down of YouTube, Twitter, and everything because they said the virus came from the lab, and they were kicked out.
Yeah. No, it's quite a world we live in today. And I think we better wrap it up there because I think these things are going to die any second. We have 1 hour and 22 minutes.
What was your favorite part of the podcast, and what would you like from Brazil if you could have?
My favorite part of this podcast is the discussion of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, because I think it kind of exemplifies how big the lie is. The lie is twice the size of Texas. Right? So that's my answer there. And what was the other part of the question?
What would you like from Brazil?
Oh, from Brazil. I would like to go back to Brazil. I want to go there again. My wife has not been to Brazil. I don't know. Oh, yes, she has been to Argentina. So she's seen Foz do Iguaçu from the Argentina side.
On the other side, yeah.
So where would I take her in Brazil? Maybe on a boat up the Amazon. That would be an amazing trip.
That's great. That's great.
I know people do that. Yes.
That's great. Or to Jalapão, where I went. It's beautiful with waterfalls, with water.
Where is this?
Jalapão is close to Brasilia. It's the capital, in the middle of Brazil. It's just in the middle of Brazil.
I've been to Brasilia. Yes.
Yeah. It's not that far.
Yeah, we were
from
there
Brasilia.
to meet. We met with government people there.
Oh.
Not too far from Brasilia.
Not too far from
Will
Brasilia.
you email me the name of this place?
I will. I sent you some pictures, I think, but I'll show you in the map where it is.